Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Just proving that third time is the charm. This is the People That Might Be Interesting podcast. My name's TJ, and this is a podcast about just listening to people that, well, might be interesting. So, today is kind of one that I don't know if it's normal or not. I guess I don't really have a standard interview that I'm going to do. It's again, anybody that strikes my fancy that might be a fun person to talk to, and it's all in the title. They might be interesting. In this case, I have Cliff, the Urban Prepper. Now, that's a YouTube channel, the Urban Prepper. You can look it up. And he's a person that devotes his channel and millions of views. So this is not some little rinky-dink channel. This is a big channel. He devotes his millions of views to personal preparedness. What it is to be prepared, to not have to wait on somebody else, to be able to help in a situation where things go bad. And he's a neat guy. So on top of being a personal preparedness expert, he's also a successful YouTuber. And so we talk about both, and we talk about what it is to live in Seattle. If you look at his icon, it's the Seattle skyline, which got me really interested because Seattle's been, frankly, a hotbed of civil unrest lately. So it's very interesting to talk to him and get a perspective of somebody that sort of isn't just an internet YouTuber, but somebody that's also got a practical reason to be into preparedness because some crazy stuff's going on there. So I think you're going to like this one. This is a good one. But before we get to it, I just wanted to say, could you please follow us on Twitter? We are at PTMBI Podcast. That's our Twitter handle. Also, you can always email the channel. It's ptmbi@protonmail.com. You can also look up People That Might Be Interesting podcast on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. It's not the primary venue for getting the podcast across. We really want to be a traditional podcast. But it's also a great way to see us, and we have a lot of views already, so that's fantastic. So anyway, this is Cliff. He is the Urban Prepper. Outstanding. This is Cliff, the Urban Prepper. Thank you, and welcome to the People That Might Be Interesting podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, I'm really excited, and I'm going to give something away up front. I am a closeted prepper. Okay. And I have... Sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of closeted preppers out there from what I hear.
Yes, and I have actually been since I was a little kid, which I'm sure there's some kind of psychosis involved there that some therapist will tell me about someday.
Yeah.
But it's been one of those things where until YouTube kind of occurred, I didn't know there were people like me. And so I've been very interested, and I follow a bunch of channels, and I've been, like, I'm 45, so I've been a closeted prepper now for probably 12, 15 years. And I kind of thought that there wasn't much new that I could learn. And the algorithm told me, hey, you're going to like this YouTube channel. So I clicked on it, and you taught me something new. Cool. It had never occurred to me to carry a Silcock key in my Get Home bag. Just never occurred to me. How did I miss that? And so ever since that day, I've been an avid watcher of all your videos as they come out. So I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate it. I really do enjoy the channel.
That is so cool. Well, thanks a bunch for supporting the channel. And I'm glad that my videos have been helpful.
And you're so all right, let me start off because there might be people, if I'm just geeking out on my own, then I'm not saying things that I should. So in your mind, what is a prepper?
So in my mind, for what a prepper is, and some people don't even like the term prepper, so someone that's into emergency preparedness topics, there's someone that wants to be a little more self-reliant on the overall grid or the system where they could take care of themselves and their family during an emergency situation, or where they're not able to get aid like they might normally would when the grid is up and everything is business as usual. So I think a prepper is someone that's just kind of has some insurance policies in place that are specific for these type of emergency events. So similar to a prepper has prepping insurance, where they have a set of supplies and skills that they can apply to various emergency situations. And then they're just actively thinking in that kind of mindset from their day-to-day lives.
I like that. I like the insurance analogy. That that works. And
yeah, for me, that's like prepping is like being a prepper, and having emergency preps is like having car insurance or having homeowners insurance or fire insurance. It's something that you hope you never have to use. You hope that it's just a big waste of money. But if you do have to use it, you're going to be thankful that you do have those kind of that kind of insurance in place. The cool thing with prepping, though, compared to car insurance is with my car insurance, the money just gets thrown away basically. With preps, I at least get some tangible items that I have in my possession. So that's one pro for it.
and it's fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it is. It's definitely fun. It's addicting, and it's such a vast topic that you could really go into one area or the next, whether it be comms or medical or outdoor survival skills or primitive survival skills, tactical areas. So it's a fun, vast topic that's just kind of never ending. It just becomes part of your life.
So at some point, I assume it became reasonable for you. At some point, something in your brain clicked and said, I'm going to start preparing for a disaster, whether it was, CME or nuclear war or zombies or any of the above. At some point, something clicked in your brain. Do you know what that something was? Or like the environment around that?
Yeah, totally. So for me, it started when I was engaged to my wife, and we were about to get married. It was about a month before the wedding, and I started, freaking out a little bit. Hey, I'm now a we, and I felt the need that I needed to provide a little more for two people now. And so what I was doing at the time, the prepping's very common that you're going to get teased and made fun of by your closest family and friends. So I was kind of sneaking around, stockpiling on rice and beans and non-perishable food, and putting these 50-pound bags in the back of our trunk and hiding them there. We were living in an apartment at the time, and eventually my wife noticed that the car had no shocks to it when we were going through parking lots, and was like, "What's going on?" And looked in the trunk, saw all these bags of 50-pound bags of these non-perishable food things. So I kind of told her, "Yeah, I'm kind of getting into this," and I think that's when it first kind of initiated with me, was getting married. And then once we had our first child, for me at that point, I was full on prepper mode, because now I had a dependent that relied on me for everything, for food, for their food and for their water and for their safety and for their shelter and everything. And they were totally dependent on me. So I went full in on that. So for me, it was more for family purposes, to be able to provide for not only myself, but for my wife, and especially for my kid. And now we have two children. And that for me, that's what keeps me the most motivated. But I think that everyone that's a prepper, they were probably like you. Something sparks them in some way. Usually it's some kind of fear. They're afraid of something, and it can be as simple as job loss. They're afraid of losing their job, and they want to make sure they have money in the bank for emergencies. And that could be a very common one. But other people gravitate towards who knows what, asteroid attacks or zombies or you name it. For me, it doesn't really matter what it takes, as long as you start prepping is a good thing.
Well, so let me ask this, although I had it farther down in my list of questions.
Okay.
Everything just goes out the window as soon as the interview starts. What, no plan survives first contact with the enemy? Isn't that the saying?
Yeah, that's true.
So do you feel vindicated at all? In recent times, 2020 has been an invigorating year for a prepper. And do you feel vindicated at all? Is there any part of you that's like, I told you so?
For some of the people that were teasing you the most, but not really. I think it's given me, it's helped reassure me that, I'm not crazy, and the things that I was worried about, that it is a possibility that could happen. So I guess in a little way, it feels good to know that but it's kind of a horrible situation too, what's going on right now. So you kind of feel guilty that sometimes I think preppers might even feel a little guilty that, hey, I'm prepared for this. I don't need to go off and stockpile a bunch of food and water to shelter in place for who knows how long, because I'm ready for that. And a lot of my family and friends, it's been a real struggle for them. And you almost feel guilty in a way that you're prepared for this and your closest people in your life aren't, and you want to help them, but you can't also help everyone, because you'll lose all your stuff and you'll be with everyone. Just be right where everyone else is. So it's kind of, in a way you feel vindicated, but you also I felt a little guilty that, hey, I'm ready for this. I've been preparing for this for 10 years now. So it's kind of two different sides to it, I guess.
That's interesting, because I thought about the vindication side. I hadn't really thought about the guilt side, but you're right. I'll just real quickly. When early in the Rona, when we didn't know anything, and that's what we kind of forget now. I mean, the United States built a bunch of hospitals for all of these millions of people that were going to die and be horribly ill, and we built ventilators. That's all escaped our memory. That's just gone.
Yep.
And I remember early on, right when this was happening, and it was a big deal, and my wife comes to me and says something to the effect of, well, do you have any masks? Because I think we're going to need masks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got like a couple hundred masks and child-size masks. So we're pretty good for a while. And she was so relieved that we already had these things that other people were looking for and kind of desperate for even.
Yep.
And you're right. I remember feeling a little bit guilty when I said, yes, we have it. I was relieved, but at the same time, I was kind of like, well, what can we do here?
Yeah, I was in a similar boat because for my channel, I review masks and I review gas masks and just normal N95 masks. So I was buying them when it wasn't cool and popular to do and not as needed. So 5 years ago, I was started to get into masks. I guess I didn't account for how much that the kind of the guilt, because you want to help other people, well, at least myself. My neighbors, I have some elderly neighbors, they had no masks, and my family had no masks. I had plenty of masks, and I didn't account for how much I might need to save up on for that purpose specifically, and not just for myself and for my family and extras, but also for neighbors and extended family members. That because once they find out that Cliff's a prepper, then they're going to start seeking out, hey, can I get some of those N95 masks? And you want to help them, but you also want to, well, how long is this actually? We don't know anything right now. How long is this going to go for? My primary objective is for my personal, my family, my kind of nuclear family, if you want to say, that was my primary goal from the beginning. So yeah, it's definitely, it was definitely kind of crazy times because, yeah, like you said, no one knew anything. Originally, people were really a lot more concerned, I think, with protecting their hands and the hand sanitizer. Right now, it's more of a mask protection, but back when it first started, no one was coming into the house. We weren't letting boxes from Amazon into the house without disinfecting them on the porch and things like that. And then we found out more information. Yeah. So, and I had preps for that ready to go. So, I got teased for years for having like different hazmat suits and having disinfectant sprays for viruses to do for this specific purpose, and people would tease me mercifully. And so, again, there's that whole guilt and wanting to help people struggle that I had, at least internally.
So your channel is called The Urban Prepper, and you've got the silhouette of Seattle. So I'm assuming, and in your videos, you say, they're always very urban located. You're in Seattle.
Yep.
And it seems like you're in the downtown Seattle, and that's either where you live or where you work, or at least where you film.
Yeah. So I work in downtown Seattle. Not right now, everyone's kind of working from home, so it's a little different. But I work in software engineering, and most of the software engineering jobs are in the city. So I'm in the city for the majority of the day, especially during the week. And at one point we lived like in the city. And then as you get married and you want to, or the more kids you have, the farther away that you try to get from the city, because it's a little more affordable for housing prices and everything like that. And you start looking at what school districts are the best. But yeah, when I started the channel, there wasn't a lot of people that I felt that were kind of city-minded or urban preppers. There was a lot more towards rural preparedness, so surviving out of the Amazon jungle or something like that, or a lot like with military backgrounds. And I didn't find a lot of basic, white collar engineer type people that are working at a desk and putting out preparedness videos. And so I just kind of chose a name there's the rural prepper. I think I'm going to go by the urban prepper. I first tried urban prepper. That wasn't available. So then I added I had no idea that people were even going to watch I just wanted to do 1 or 2 videos and then have that be it. So I wasn't really thinking too much of the branding, but I still use that it's from the TV show Frasier is where I kind of got that idea for that background for this. But I wanted the icon or the avatar to represent what my channel was going to be about, which is a city. And I used the kind of the Seattle-ish color scheme as well. So like the color scheme that I use for my logo is kind of the Seattle Seahawks color scheme.
I was going to say it's the Emerald City. So
yep.
So
Yeah. So,
as you know, because as I follow a bunch of prepper channels
mhm.
and I watch them, and you're right, they tend often they're very rural. Recently I've been working on a Get Home bag, and I'm trying to
Yep.
improve it. And I've had one for a long time, but I'm always kind of looking for new ideas. And as I looked them up, I would find people in South Carolina and and in places that just did not apply to me in a more suburban or urban setting.
Mhm.
And so it seems like that's become your niche. You're right, there are not a lot of urban or suburban, I guess really urban style prepper channels. And is that what people, when they reach out to you, is that what that appeals to them?
Yeah, that's definitely the main reason. And I think there's actually probably more urban preppers out. It kind of sounds almost like you're conceited that, yeah, I'm the urban prepper, but really there's a whole bunch of urban preppers out there. I imagine there's more urban preppers than there are rural preppers because most people are probably in the city, especially if we're talking the United States. But yeah, I think the majority of the people that, at least based off of my interactions with them, and then when you look at the analytics, they're between 30 to 50 years old, and they work in urban environment at a desk job, and they have a family for the most part. And those are the majority of the people that watch my videos specifically for urban related preparedness topics. So they don't have an off-grid homestead where they're raising chickens and stuff like that, or using a fishing net to get fish out of the
Right.
and using a well. They're living in an apartment or something, and they have limited space for their preps, and they're looking for organization type stuff, which is, I think, another one of the niches for my channel is just trying to organize your preps in an organized method with a smaller amount of space.
So how many millions of views do you have right now?
I think the last time I looked, it's around 20 million, I guess, is where right around that range. Some videos do really well, some do okay, some do. No one watches them. Depends on the topic, but it's pretty crazy that I know that for other channels, like I imagine if I had a video game channel, you probably get millions of hundreds of millions of views. But for me, 20, I never thought that I'd have a reach of that many people that would be interested in watching a video that I have with regard to emergency preparedness. And it's growing, and a lot of other preparedness channels are growing too. So it's cool that other people are starting to come on board. And I think the more preppers that we're able to make or encourage them to get into prepping, the less of a kind of over burden there'll be on the overall grid. So the grid will be able to support more people because they don't have to worry about as many, because we have more preppers out there, more people that are prepared for emergency events. So yeah, I think it's around 20 million, long story short.
Oh, that's incredible. So what would you tell, like I have friends and they'll come to me and occasionally they'll ask questions and occasionally they'll make fun of me and or both.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you, if when somebody comes to you, what do you tell them? Say, and they're like, hey, what's this whole prepping thing? And maybe they're not like really pretending to be, or maybe they're pretending not to be interested. And they're like, oh, yeah, tell me what that's about.
Yeah, they kind of feel you out a little bit. I think anyone that does ask about it, I think that they have some kind of interest in it. It's the ones that just come right off the bat and start making fun of it. Hey, I heard you're a prepper. You got a underground bunker with your whatever, with a bunch of weapons or something. That's what they're. I think shows like Doomsday Prepper kind of showed preparedness in that kind of light, and so that's what just when people think of a prepper, that's what they imagine, and they don't imagine that a prepper is just like you can't spot a prepper really because they follow like the gray man concept as a popular topic in preparedness. But people that they'll usually start, hey, what, I hear that you have a prepping channel. You're into, and I say, yeah, I'm into. I always try to phrase it in terms of emergency preparedness or an emergency preparedness kit, because
Okay.
it sounds a little more official, and because some people have a negative when they see prepper or prepping, for some reason it has a negative light to it. But if you say preparedness and readiness and stuff like that, that sounds a little bit more official, and maybe they see that from ready.gov and stuff like that. So I try to frame it in that light, is that I'm into emergency preparedness for emergency kits for, if I phrase it towards natural disasters and natural events, like even having your car broken down, trying to put it into kind of practical measures that they could relate to, then I find that it's more welcoming to people, and they'll, oh yeah, well, what do you have in your car? Because that's something that everyone could relate to, is having a flat tire, being on the side of the road, versus a lot of people aren't going to be able to relate to the CME or some kind of a solar event or EMP and stuff like that. So if you start off with EMP and nukes and zombies, you're gonna people it's gonna scare them off. But if you talk about carrying stuff in my pocket or having a first aid kit or having a car kit or having a little kit in my office for if the power goes out or a blizzard, they can relate to that, and it doesn't seem like that crazy of a thing to do.
Well, it's funny. So I have really robust like first aid kits in my car and in my wife's van,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife was always on board. She was never against it, but it was always one of those things where it was kind of my thing.
Yep.
And I'm not saying she was humoring me, but maybe she was humoring me. It's at least possible.
Yep.
And so I had a pretty robust first aid kit, and she was out with the kids and her parents and some family members, and I don't remember exactly what it was. They might have had like something stupid, like one of those water balloon launchers that has the big rubber, the things where three people pull it back and
Yep.
you let the water balloons go. It was something like that, and it broke and it snapped and it hit him right in the face,
Oh, geez.
and he was bleeding like a stuck pig, and they couldn't get the bleeding stopped, and he was really bleeding, and she's like, hang on, runs, gets this pretty big first aid kit, runs out there, ends up putting pretty simple butterfly bandages on the wound, and gets the bleeding stopped and has everything she needs to handle it. And I remember she comes home and she's like, yeah, okay. She didn't become a prepper at that point, and she's still not, but all of a sudden she was kind of in. At that point, there was really nothing I couldn't do that would bother her.
Yeah. That's a great story. I mean, I imagine she probably made the people that were there consider, hey, I need to have a first aid kit for if this happens again. So she might have made some preppers right there.
She did, and it was one of those things where her family knew, and I'm not saying they made fun of me, but it was just one of those things that was his eccentricity.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it was okay. After that, it was never really a thing anymore. It was just, okay, that's TJ, and that's good.
Yeah, my wife was the same way, especially early on, because she kind of tolerated it, but it wasn't her thing at all. It was totally my thing. I find that, like in that situation that you described, and other situations, everyone kind of makes fun of a prepper unless they really need a prepper to have something, and then you're like the most important person there. So oftentimes I find that, hey, you're a prepper. Do you have this or do you have that? And they kind of hope that you have those kind of things when they don't. But yeah, I think first aid kits is a good kind of gateway drug into preparedness. Because everyone needs a first aid kit, and it's good to have them in your vehicles and good to have in your backpacks. And I even carry a small one on my person, like a pocket size one, because it comes in handy, and that could be kind of a gateway into getting into more preparedness type things, because they see that this is actually a real thing that could happen, and there are other real things that could happen too. So that's a pretty awesome story. Before I forget, I was going to ask, you mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast that you were a prepper as a little kid, and I was curious what you were preparing for.
Well, it was funny because it's one of those things where it didn't manifest really as being a prepper until later. But as a kid, I was really interested in ham radio, and I couldn't get a ham radio, so I became interested in like shortwave radio, and it was just one of those things where I was always kind of really concerned about a backup plan. What if what we're doing right now goes wrong? Let's be prepared to change a course and do something different.
Yeah.
And I just look back on my childhood and different things like that, and I'm like, yeah, I can see totally how that manifested in becoming interested in emergency preparedness as an adult. And my actual story is very similar to yours. It was a little bit after I got married, because I work in an industry when the weather's bad, I often have to go into work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will then, when things are really going bad, I have to leave my wife. And then it just totally, threw me for a loop when all of a sudden I had a newborn. And I'm like, oh, I got to remember that when things are bad, my job is that I go to work when things are bad. And so I need to make sure that she has everything that she needs.
Yep.
And then, like I've been like stuck in blizzards where I'm out in my car, and not bad. I mean, it worked out pretty quickly and well, but just one of those things where I can see as being a little kid and being concerned about this stuff, and then later, it manifesting into being a prepper.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, Seattle has had Seattle's been in the popular consciousness lately,
Yes, it has.
and how is being a prepper revolved around that? Because I mean, I'm outside Chicago, and I've said that on the show before, so that's not a surprise.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things where I can see what's going on in Chicago and know that I'm 20 miles away from that. And 20 miles is a long way.
Yep.
But I just visited Seattle last year for the first time, and I mean, I'll be honest, it was the most beautiful city I've ever seen. I mean,
Wow.
calling it the Emerald City was not a lie. And I came in September, and I mean, everything was just fluorescent green. It was just incredible. There were other things that I saw that it was a little more challenging, but I certainly get the appeal of living there. And then, but it's kind of, is it fair to say that it's kind of a compact city?
Yeah, it definitely is. Even the way that the whole city is designed, where the freeway access point to get into downtown, the freeway just kind of runs directly through the freeway runs directly through the city, so it kind of compacts it in a certain area, especially the downtown area, where you can't really expand it even if they wanted to. So, but yeah, I definitely enjoy the Seattle area, just the Pacific Northwest in general. I enjoy the water and the hills and the trees and the mountains. It's all really that's stuff that I like compared to there's other states that it's a lot more flat, I guess. And I haven't been to Chicago for many years, but probably 20 years. But I remember being pretty flat compared to what I'm used to.
Yes, but we have corn.
That's true. Yeah.
We have a lot of, in fact, it's corn from here to the Mississippi River and then from there to Colorado. So that's what we have.
Yeah, and you have a guy good food too. So
Yeah, we do. But how is all of what's going on in Seattle affected you as a prepper, but then as a prepper husband, and then as a prepper father?
well, I mean, yeah, the stuff going on in Seattle that's of the most concern is civil unrest. So stuff going on, not business as usual. I think a lot of it is gravitates to certain areas, and as long as you stay away from those areas, you're kind of in the clear. But some of that stuff's branching out a little bit too. I think for me as a prepper, it's made me focus more of my attention towards preparedness measures for those type of situations. A lot of it is more knowledge and skill based as far as what would I do in this situation to protect myself or my family. So versus, hey, I need to buy this gear or this gear, like you would for. It's not a food and water type issue as much as it is more of a home safety, personal safety in your vehicle. So, I mean, for me, I've had to focus a lot towards that, and I'm trying to improve my home preparedness, perimeter defense, and alarms and cameras. And I've been sharing a lot of that on my videos. A lot of the businesses around town, they board up their windows when stuff like that's going on to protect it. And so I kind of followed their suit, and I pre-cut plywood boards for all the doors and windows of our home. So if I needed to, I could do that in a similar way. And then in addition to beefing up the home alarm system and the motion detectors out at a certain perimeter, and even getting into drones and autonomous flight and neighborhood watch type stuff. So I have multiple layers of kind of security, or at least surveillance or monitoring within my home. So for me, I've been gravitating a lot towards that over as all of this has been going on over the past 6 months, compared to what I was doing in previous years, where I might have been focusing more on earthquakes or for calm stuff or volcanic stuff. Right now, this is kind of where I'm trying to focus most of my attention.
Now, so in Seattle, has the popular consciousness, and this might not be a fair question, I'll admit that up front, but do you think the popular consciousness has turned it all towards saying, all right, something really out of the ordinary has happened, and so we need to be kind of either demanding of our political officials, or do we need to be more prepared for this? Because I'll admit, in Chicago, sometimes we're a little blasé about it. And we're like a little bit like, whatever, it'll be fine. I mean, have other parts of the country, which, I mean, I always thought that Seattle was like super chill. And is it taking this sort of civil unrest environment in its super chill kind of way, or is it, okay, this is different and this is something a little bit?
Yeah, so I don't live in the areas that are where all the most of the stuff is going on at, like especially like at the Capitol, like the whole Chaz thing or CHOP, the Capitol Hill
Oh yeah.
area. That's kind of a hotbed for this, and that definitely has its ramifications in the political system and with the police stations and stuff. I'm farther away from that, so it's more, as you describe it, more chill where I'm at, which is what I want. But you never know when that could change. There and these places where this is going on at largely, when you talk downtown, when you talk Capitol Hill, it's not like this is any. They have their own. They're eccentric in their own ways, just naturally over there, and they have more concern on some of the political stuff, just even long before all this kind of stuff. And their way that they express that is different than how they'd express that in, who knows, Anacortes or West Seattle or Renton. There's different areas of the greater Seattle area, even across the water in Bellevue. It's a different vibe there than it is in Capitol Hill, and therefore the way that people respond or the way they think about what's going on now and stuff politically it varies as well.
So if you don't mind, I'll change gears back to the channel a little bit.
Sure.
One of the things that I really think sets your channel apart, and the reason what made me think of this is I was watching Grand Thumb. I don't know if you've ever watched his channel or not. Seems like a real cool guy. I think he's actually active duty Army lieutenant, I think. Okay. But he's got this real tactical channel, and so of course it comes up in the algorithm. And I've watched some of his videos. He's a neat guy, but it's all military tactical all the time. And yeah. This guy just published this probably 6 weeks ago. And again, I was Googling, or I was searching on YouTube for Get Home Bags. And this young guy who I don't think knew much, but I'm not here to judge him. He's talking about his Get Home Bag, and he doesn't have anything for water. He barely has a medical kit. He has basically nothing in it, but he's got all these guns.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you don't have a flashlight. At some point, it seems like there's some basics that you get to before you get to that. And your show really, or your channel really does not focus on the tactical aspects of things. That seems like it's by design, but is it?
Yes. It's totally by design. I did that very early on in the channel. I do know, I don't follow Grand Thumb, but the videos show up in my feed for like recommended ones, and I know it's more of a tactical type channel. There's a lot of really good tactical channels out there, and if you're into that, those are the channels you want to be at, whether it be there's a whole list of them. I knew that wasn't as much of my concern as it. I didn't feel like I should even talk about that kind of stuff if I wasn't as into it as I am with other things. Prepping is a real vast topic, and tactical stuff is one area of it. But I agree that, a lot of the people I find that a lot of the channels that are, especially preparedness channels that are heavily focused on the tactical side, they're really using prepping as a justification for they like guns and they like all these weapons and stuff like that. And, oh yeah, I'm a prepper too. So, but it's really, as you mentioned, what's in your Get Home Bag? Well, I got guns and ammo, and that's it. And if anything else, that's all I need to get anything else I have. So basically, they're saying they're a bad guy. So. For me, I decided, hey, I'm not going to show guns. I'm not going to talk about guns. I don't even really talk about knives. And I kind of treat my YouTube channel as almost like a first date where at least how they say it. And I don't know how it is now because I've been in the dating game for a while, but in the first date, you don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics. And that's what I try to do with my channel. So, and guns is kind of at least in the United States, has turned into kind of a political thing with people have kind of polarized viewpoints on it. And I didn't want to polarize my audience. So I just said, okay, well, I'm not going to focus on that. Water isn't polarization, and kit organizations, that's not polarizing. So I wanted to focus on things that were more universal. And I also recognized early on, which I was grateful for now, is that, my audience, I'm not just talking to people in the United States. I'm talking to people in different countries that have different laws, and some aren't able to have firearms, or some aren't even able to have knives and stuff. So I wanted to try to, as much as possible, have my channel focus on universal topics that were prepping focused. And it's been kind of a niche of mine. I think a lot of people feel that my channel is safe in a way where they don't have to some people aren't into that, some people are, and but they kind of feel that my channel's safe in that regards, and I feel that it's lends itself better to more of a worldwide audience with different laws and regulations and stuff. So I've been kind of happy that I've done that. Plus, nowadays, a lot of that stuff could get flagged by the algorithms and things, so I don't have to worry about that anyway. So it's not a big deal. So.
Oh, that's a good point. That really is a good point. It seems like, in fact, sometimes not all channels, and actually not Garand Thumb. I actually think he has a cool channel and he's funny.
Yeah.
But I call it prepper porn.
Yeah.
There are channels that are just, hey, here's my knife review because they sent me this, and here's my review, and isn't it great because I got it for free.
Yep.
And I'm not going to begrudge anybody that can get free stuff and monetize their channel and do their thing like that. I'm not going to begrudge them that. Rock on, you be you, buddy.
Yeah.
But there are times when some of the channels just get a little superficial.
Totally.
When it becomes, frankly, porn. Whether it's the backpack reviews, and I was looking at backpack reviews last night, and there are ones that I'm like, wow, this is a really good review where this guy really was honest and did this really well. And then there's the other ones where they're like taking garbage bags that they know are garbage, but giving them great reviews because they got it for free.
Yeah. Yeah, I've that's been a pet peeve of mine as well. There's gear porn and there's fear porn is what there's stuff that try to scare people because it's popular, and then there's like people that are into the gear and they get it sent by a company because it's cheaper for a company to send you a knife than it is for them to put out an ad in a magazine. Yeah, and they could get a ton of views just on a simple mailing someone with the audience with reach a free piece of gear. I really try to not do those kind of things and only focus on gear that I actually use and like. I have a pet peeve towards unboxing videos because I just don't like them. For me, that means that they haven't really used the piece of gear that they're showing, and how could they really vouch for it or give it any kind of plug? You'll never see an unboxing video of someone's underwear because you have to. How am I going to recommend the underwear unless I've worn it? And it's so I try to treat all my reviews kind of like I treat my underwear. It has to be worn for an extended period of time before I can recommend it to someone.
I can give you an example of why you might want to watch unboxing videos.
Okay.
I've got one. I swear.
Okay. So listen.
All right. So I'm an Amazon Prime member, and if you're one of those people like me that will just order stuff just to see if I'm going to like it and then return it if I need to, it's great for figuring out how to get the packaging back together. Because you almost like watch the video in reverse. I've done that a couple of times now. I used to hate unboxing videos. Mostly I still do, but every once in a while they'll just save your butt.
Yeah, and I shouldn't say that I hate unboxing videos. I hate unboxing videos that are treated as a review of the product. So I don't think it should be used as a review. It's an unboxing. But they shouldn't say one way or another whether the product's good and that you should buy it, because how do they know? They just don't. It still has the plastic on it. So I guess I probably shouldn't phrase it that I hate unboxing videos. I just hate like when I'm looking for a review of something and it's someone showing it and it's still in the package. Like I think just like your underwear, I do not have any of the original packaging for the underwear that I have. It should be long gone in the trash for me. So I try to do the same thing with my flashlights and multi-tools and whatever else. The original box that it came in is long gone, and it's just the tool, and then I could vouch for it in one way or another.
Yeah, I have a problem with buying flashlights. I am completely obsessed with them.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's one of my Achilles heels too. Some people the tactical people are into guns and knives and stuff. I'm into flashlights and power, like USB power banks. Those are my things.
Cool, yeah. Well, my problem with like knives and stuff is that I'm left-handed, and the knife community just sucks for being lefty. So
yeah, they don't care about the lefties.
I have found one knife that works for me as my everyday carry because it's ambidextrous, and I really like the way that it works. So knife videos, I just pass them by because I've got the one I like, and I'm happy.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, my knife doesn't change that much, so that's why I really don't cover a lot of knife videos. I'll show it in my EDC, but once you have a good knife, I mean, why do I need to change it to a different one 2 weeks from now and show a new EDC video of my knife? But yeah, it's definitely not a fair game for the lefties. I know that.
So now, when you make your videos, they're typically in an urban background, kind of fitting with the name, of course, and the production values are pretty high. So I assume you're a self-shooter.
Yep.
But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, my production has gotten better because when I originally started making the videos, again, I never thought that people would actually want to watch them. So I filmed them with my wife's pink flip camera, and that's what I used for the first year. And then I got another flip camera, but it was a different color for myself. And I've slowly been trying to improve the audio and the lighting and the camera equipment and the editing software. That's the whole part of like making YouTube videos. It's not just the content itself, but you have to present it. Even the thumbnails is important.
Right.
There's so many different aspects to getting someone to actually watch the video and actually like it. And for me, I found that it's probably most important to have good audio and good lighting versus having the 4K video versus a 1080p or even a whatever 720 or whatever it is. Yeah. Having good audio, having good light and good audio is important.
You know, that's a truism in like video production, movie making. People will forgive bad video quality, but no one will forgive bad audio.
Yeah, and most of the time now, I can barely watch my older videos because the filler words just drive me bonkers. And I said it a lot, and I was doing it all wrong back then, where I was trying to do the video and the audio all at the same time rather than doing B-roll footage and then doing an audio track and all of that and making sure that I'm not saying and as best as possible. So when we do these kind of podcasts and live streams, those words come out a little bit better. But over the past few years, I've been making sure that those are edited out from the videos.
I'm a terrible ummer, just so you know, and I typically don't edit the podcasts. It's pretty much live as it is, but I'm terrible with my ums. But you put out a lot of content, sometimes 2 videos a week.
Yeah.
Your Gray Man video, which just came out, was it this week or late last week?
Let's see, what was the last one? Sometimes I forget which video was the most recent one. But I try to do about 2. If I could do 2 videos a week, I'm doing pretty good. Even if one of them it might be a live stream, those are usually easier for me to do because it's just wham bam type thing versus a video that takes a lot of editing. Recently I've been focusing a lot towards food preparedness and storage and, the top 10 type bulk items to get at a restaurant supply store. And I did, the last video I did was more of a live stream that I did with a drone autonomous flight software company. But yeah, I try to, if I could do 2 a week, I'm doing good. At minimum 1 a week. I wish I could do more, but I also have a day job too.
Right. Well, and a family.
Yep. Family and yeah.
Are you finding that it's kind of dragging on the whole home life balance? I'm getting that phrase wrong.
Well, I don't want it to, but it does. It can sink into that. And it's a lot of, just putting together a video I want to make sure the videos that I do are of good quality, and you kind of want to raise your personal standards or bar and so it takes a fair amount of time to do all that editing and the planning of it and the filming of it and the recording of your audio and figuring out the video storyboard on what you want these scenes to look like to get the best message across and doing the editing and making sure that it's right and you didn't say anything stupid that you're going to regret 7 years from now. That takes a fair amount of time. It could take 20 hours probably on average. And that's 20 hours that you could be cleaning the house or spending time with the family. So I try to, as much as possible, I try to do it on off hours when either everyone's asleep either in the morning or at night. And then I try to do a lot of that B-roll footage as I'm out and about. So if I have a little bit of a break, I'll go outside and record some of that B-roll footage. And that allows me to be able to create these videos at the same time that I'm doing other things.
That's great because I just know being on the podcast side of things, it takes some time. So with the video and the editing and sitting in the editing suite and you've got Premiere or whatever it is that you use, Blackmagic or whatever, open and you're making tracks and stuff. It's very complicated and very time consuming. Are you self-taught?
Yeah, I've been learning all this from scratch. Again, there's my filler word, but yeah, I eventually started using Adobe Premiere Pro for that. But previously I was using Windows Movie Maker, like the free one, and just kind of figured it out as I went. And you kind of get better. And when you see people, especially nowadays, people are doing really cool things with After Effects and all sorts of fancy graphics and stuff. Again, I think the content and what you're saying and the audio and visual is the most important versus fancy stuff. But I want to try to also make sure that I'm keeping up with the times as best as possible. So all of that's self-taught, and I learned it through other YouTube videos for the most part.
Well, one of the things I talk to not all my guests about, but it's become kind of a theme, is the direct-to-consumer concept.
Mm-hmm.
So, many years ago, there was always a gatekeeper. There was always somebody in between the artist or the producer and the consumer. And it could have been a record label. It could have been a production studio, like a Hollywood studio. It could have been a publisher. There were always these gatekeepers, and they decided that it was going to be, Latin pop this year, but next year it's going to be West Coast rap. And they were the tastemakers. And that seems to have gone away. You make your videos, there's YouTube in between, and you kind of have to comply with their content rules. And there's an ebb and flow to that. But for the most part, they're pretty good about not taking too much stuff down. So you go directly to your audience. How would you have been the urban prepper, the person that's teaching other people how to do things 20 years ago?
Yeah, the technology wasn't there, and that kind of platform wasn't a model. And this could be for not just preparedness, but just as you mentioned, even like music and bands had to go through a booking agent or get approval through a club or something to be able to play there for their audience. Now we have the technology's there, and the internet speeds and stuff to just go directly, get rid of the middleman. You could start your own, you could be a musician online and build up an audience, and when you don't have to worry about these booking agents and club owners and stuff like that. The same thing goes with these type of preparedness videos, where I don't need to go talk to whatever video publishing agency there is, or even with books, you don't even need to go through a publisher for a book. If you want to write a book, write it. You can have it printed and sell it on your website, and there is no middleman. So I think that's pretty cool that we're able to do that now, and it's opened a lot of doors, and a lot of people that probably wouldn't have been well known or been able to obtain an audience where they have reach previously, now they're able to do that. So I think it allows talent to rise and not be held back by for whatever reason that some middle person might block.
Well, and one of the things that I've always been same concept or along the same lines is, the middle person wasn't all bad. Sometimes the middle person made sure that the quality was okay. Okay, we're going to set a bar for the quality that if it gets above this mark, then they become a possible candidate for getting a record label or getting a movie deal. But under this bar, they can go do something else. And it seems like now that's become, again, kind of direct to consumer, kind of self-selected, but it's like the Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a Patreon?
No, I don't do a Patreon or any of the other ones where I've always wanted to treat my videos as open. Because I come from a computer background, for me, it's like open source software where it's open, it's free to everyone. I didn't want to have to ask for money from my viewers to watch videos or to make it happen. I I have a day job, so that helps finance me. If I didn't have a day job, maybe I'd have to look into it a little bit more. But I just wanted people to come where they didn't even have that pressure. I was providing them free content and free information. They could use it if they want to. They could give me a thumbs down if they want to, or make fun of me if they want to. And it's all just kind of open out there. So yeah, I don't do a Patreon, and I don't do like paid promotions where some backpack company is paying me money to make this video, because I want to try to remain as unbiased as possible. So I don't want a viewer saying, hey, you got paid by this walkie-talkie company to make this video. You don't really like it. So I'm able now, because of the way that my model at least is built up, is that, I'm not paid by anyone. So I'm not biased towards it, and I'm going to give you an honest review. And I think people want authenticity and want things that are honest and unbiased and real. There's so much in the world right now that's kind of fake and manufactured, even music or stuff on TV, or the auto tune and stuff like that for music. There's so much things that are fake, so people want that realness and something that's not bought and paid for. So unfortunately, I've been able to do that thus far. Maybe a year from now, maybe you'll see my Patreon account spin up. But I've been really happy that that's kind of been the working model for me.
I get where you're coming from. I really respect that. I'll be the first to say I really respect Patreon, though. In that, at least for me as a surprise, I didn't think I would ever do this. It never occurred to me that I would ever think it was reasonable to pay somebody directly for their content. I never thought that. Because we're not taught that. We're taught that we're the product, because, we watch television for the most part for free, except I guess you pay cable. But, over the air, you can watch television for free. But they aren't the product, you are.
Yep.
Because they're selling you to advertisers.
Yep.
And so I've found that I have a dollar limit. I have a budget for Patreon, and that's what I spend per month. And I'll admit it kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. So I might be doing $6 a month to one, say YouTube channel, but I might drop that down and then raise it up for a couple others. And I kind of bounce around on it. But I felt, me personally, as the person paying, I feel good about paying. And maybe that's just a sign of good marketing, is when I want to give you my money. But I have found that the concept of, the medieval patron,
Yep.
like you go to Michelangelo and say, okay, Michelangelo, you're going to work for me. If you say you're the Pope.
Yeah.
That whole concept, I like it on the micro scale. I feel like it really works with the direct to consumer concept.
I think it's awesome. Don't get me wrong on that. For me personally, because I do product reviews, I didn't want to feel like I was bought and paid for a product review, but it's been so Patreon and the other method, even PayPal, we could do a PayPal me where you send money or the super chat in Google. There's different ways that people could tip you, and it helps people start their own business, basically. So they are the business, and that's the way that, if that's the way that they generate money. I have a Patreon account, and I give channels money. I just don't take money myself personally. So,
okay.
But I like helping out other channels. I do it more through PayPal than Patreon. But in the same way, like I have a Disney Plus for the kids, and I have Netflix, and then I have a certain budget dedicated towards independent content creators. I really like supporting independent content creators that aren't behind some multi-billion-dollar multinational company that's pumping out these videos. I think that we have capabilities now that allow just some person in their dining room to have impact around the world with low overhead, and they're not controlled. And it goes back to being real about the content that you're putting out there. I definitely like that, and I think it's cool that Patreon is able to do that for YouTubers and for musicians and for artists and stuff. I think that's awesome. I've always been just concerned about being beholden to someone, like, hey, this guy has given me $1,000 over the year. Now they want me to do a video on this, but I don't really want to do it. So that's what I've always been concerned about.
Well, and it's interesting, if you take a step back, you're like, here is a YouTube channel, but here you are thinking about the ethics of it and how much that really does matter to you. And you might not have thought, I guess maybe I wouldn't have thought, how much the ethics of the situation would eventually come to bear. It'd be something you'd have to think about.
Yep.
So let me switch back to prepping for a second.
Yep.
So what does the future of prepping look like?
Well, I think previously prepping was something that was mocked and ridiculed. I think 2020 is definitely the year of the prepper in my mind. It seems like something that 80s preppers weren't crazy after all. They were actually right. They had their masks, they had their toilet paper stocked up, and they're not the ones going out to the store and hoarding a bunch of some random supply. So I think I'm hoping, at least moving forward, that prepping will be seen as more of a practical thing that people should do. And it won't be mocked, because we know what has happened when people weren't prepared. There was people that were caught off guard with COVID-19 and everything. So I'm hoping that it changes the mindset to make it a little bit more of a tangible, practical thing that people should do, just like back in the beginning, just like car insurance or health insurance or whatever it is, that it's looked more in that light. It may go back to teasing us a little bit, but I'm hoping that the optics have changed a little bit.
Well, and it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. My grandma was very much, both of my grandparents, but really my grandmother on my mom's side was really molded by the Depression. She was a child during the Depression in a part of the country that was hit really, really hard. And it really, it became kind of the guiding force in a lot of ways throughout her life. And she always appreciated my preparedness mindset. She really thought that was great, as having come out of the Depression. But it was because it was such a foundational event in her life, it never really left her. And I was wondering the other day when I was sitting down writing questions for this interview, if if we would look back on 2020 as those kind of foundational events where we go, okay, we thought everything, we thought one way up to 2020, and then after 2020, things were a little different. And for our grandkids are going to be like, it was 2020. Eventually, we'll figure out a name for what we're going to call 2020. Yeah. But they're going to look back and be like, that was their foundational event.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's totally going to be like that. Hoping that all of this kind of goes away to go back to some kind of normal period. But I think we try to be pretty mindful of the effect this is going to have on our kids. They're now being asked to wear masks, and it's confusing for them. But yeah, I've had family members too that my grandma and grandpa would talk about the Great Depression and what they would have as far as what they did, mainly what they didn't have. And it seemed like they appreciated life a lot more back then because they didn't have everything. They weren't just going to Starbucks when they wanted a mocha or something and the breakfast sandwich. So stuff meant a little bit more, and family meant more too, which I thought was important. The Great Depression nowadays is brought up a lot in a lot of YouTube videos, more for like kind of the fear factor of the next Great Depression's happening. But for me, I find a lot of interest in figuring out what did people do during those times as far as like for preparing food. I recently have been getting into, there's a YouTube channel called the Great Depression Cooking by Clara. It's Clara's Kitchen, and it was this 92-year-old lady she started her channel when she was around 92 years old, and she passed away at around 98, I believe, back in 2013. And she described all of these Great Depression meals that her family made, and she still makes to this day, and to her grandkids helped build this channel for her, and she became very well known. I highly recommend it, and she has a really great book too. But
yeah, I'll check that out.
It talks a lot about that, and it just kind of shows that this stuff happened when she was a little kid, and now she's able to pass down a lot of knowledge that she obtained as a little kid down to her kids and her grandkids, and now to a online audience as well. I imagine that something similar will probably be happening with regard to kind of pandemic preparedness type topics.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've been thinking about was, because my kids are relatively young and impressionable, and I always wonder a little bit how, is school ever going to be exactly like it was before, or is this whole e-learning thing going to stick around? It's always going to be in the background. The e-learning side of things will always be around, and what are the kids going to take away from this? Because I'm pretty confident I know what the adults are going to take away from it, because we have the life experience to know what's going on. But I'm kind of curious how the kids are going to react long term, and there's no way to know right now. But I'm curious, and I'll give you an example. So I was a 90s kid, and so I was I guess I was a Gen Xer. And Gen Xer, if you look at the demography of it, they wanted to start businesses. So you look at guys like Elon Musk, or you look at the Amazon guy, whose name is escaping me right now. Bezos. You look at these Gen Xers, and they wanted to get out and start companies and do all of this stuff. And they did. And they were very distrustful of authority. And they're doing great during the whole coronavirus thing, because they were used to spending a decade alone in their bedroom listening to music. It's what we did. It was our thing. But then you look at the millennials, and right now, the number one group sitting in retirement seminars are the people that are going to retire in the next 2 years. The number two group are millennials, because you could not get Gen Xers to sit in a retirement seminar. We're never going to be able to retire. Things suck. You suck. We're not going to that. We don't trust you. You're telling us lies. You're some corporate shill. We're not getting involved. But the millennials, they're doing it. They want to know about how am I going to retire? How am I going to do this? Tell me about 401ks. Tell me about defined benefit programs. And I wonder if this is going to be one of those things that has this little generational effect with how they decide to learn things and do things in the future.
Yeah, I think it's kind of showed us, I guess, a silver lining with all of this is that the jobs that you're able to work from home are going to be more popular for people. I've really enjoyed not having a big long commute to the office in downtown Seattle. I've been able to work from home, and hasn't been that initially. I think it was a little tougher, but now everyone's kind of getting used to that. And maybe we don't need to be in an office for 40 hours a week. Maybe we just need to go a couple times a week for some certain meetings and stuff like that, because the the face-to-face is still important. The kind of those, I do miss kind of the coffee room dialogues that would happen in a workplace. But I do think that it's a lot of the professions are, people are going to want to do stuff that they're able to work from home doing versus stuff that requires them to be at a specific location where they might be exposed to something. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's gonna happen. And I think that the kids will most likely, maybe in the same way, maybe they only have to go to school 3 days a week or 2 days a week, and then the rest of them is video ones where they can be closer to their family. So hopefully all of this, as far as a silver lining, that puts more importance back to the home life and family life, and that's why we're doing this anyway. That's why I go to work anyway, is to provide for my family and to have a house and food and stuff. So it'd be nice if I could be there more often. So with this, at least I'm able to do that. So I hope that when this is all said and done, that we've taken the positives from it, even from a horrible situation like what's going on, towards improving just the overall lifestyle of people, around the world.
Well, Cliff, thank you. So just, this podcast is called People That Might Be Interesting, and you've been great. This has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was really fun talking with you. I feel like we could talk for hours.
So how can people find you?
So my main platform is my YouTube channel. They just search for, you could go on YouTube and search The Urban Prepper. It'll pop up, look for the Seattle landscape. You could Google, and it'll also come up with some of the other social media sites. I'm basically on all the social media sites. My primary one is YouTube, but I also have an Instagram, and I have on Twitter, I go by Got Preps, kind of like Got Milk. And same with Facebook is also Got Preps. And then I'm also on various other smaller social media sites as well. Maybe they'll pick up or something. So some of the blockchain type sites. But again, the primary site is my YouTube channel, which is The Urban Prepper. So youtube.com/The Urban Prepper.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait for more videos.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on. And anytime you want to talk more, we should totally do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great.